This was challenging because I felt that I was in a situation where continuing as it was not an option. There had to be a shift and a change. You know, if you took the personalities out, you took the relationships out, and you just looked at it on paper, it was not equitable anymore. It didn't make sense.
She just sold her company. She sat in a room full of men negotiating the biggest deal of her lifetime. Wait, she sold for how much? I can't even believe she managed to get double her valuation. Let's keep this just between us.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Exit Whisperer. This is one of my last that I'm recording virtually. I'm launching our New York City studio in September, and so I am headed into my final season of virtual interviews, and this one was really great. I got to talk to Angela Pointon, who sold 11 out of 11, which is a digital marketing agency for small businesses. Here's the thing. One of the things that she talks about is how she started it with partners and then bought them out. And I'll tell you that, like, one of the top calls I get from women are, I get these calls that's like, I got to get out of this partnership. I got to buy out my partners. I got to figure this out. And Angela in this interview gives really, really practical, tactical advice for that. And I really am looking forward to sharing that with you. She also talks about life after acquisition, and she had a marketing agency. It wasn't like a giant one. It was a good marketing agency, and she sold it, and she's perfectly happy, sort of like flowing through this next chapter of her life. And I think it's something that many of us can learn from, certainly me. Because as I've discovered lately, sometimes I have no chill. I need a little more chill like Angela. So take a listen. I'm excited for you guys to hear some of her insights. And here we go. Exit Whisperer time. Welcome, Angela, to the show.
Thank you, Carrie. Super excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited to be here with you because we actually sold through the same M&A advisory group.
We did.
Oh, awesome. And I know that's how we originally connected.
That's right.
And I'm really excited to hear your story. So tell me about the start of 11 out of 11.
Yeah. So I had worked at a marketing agency for 7 years, something like that, and decided when my kids were really small to just leave and freelance. That went on for like 2 years. And then the owners of that agency approached me and asked if we wanted to maybe start an agency, the three of us.
Wow.
They were swimming upstream from a client size perspective, but they were still getting leads for smaller organizations. And so 11 out of 11 was birthed out of, I ain't got anything to lose. Why not? Like, I'm, trying to like work for myself anyway. It was wonderful. I would say like the first few years, like that problem of generating business was not a problem that I had because it had a built-in, lead generation / biz dev operation that I did not need to worry about. And I just had to worry about finances, operations, and serving the clients, which was something that I was really, really good at. Fast forward, some things shifted and changed, and that lead development engine became more and more part of my responsibility. And I think I started getting good at it, which was a good thing out of necessity. I really, really wanted to continue to grow. We had won like fastest growing company in Philadelphia multiple times. There was no stopping at that point, but it became obvious that I was ready to like take the organization 100% at that point. And so bought my partners out in 2022 and thought I would continue to own it until my kids were out of high school, maybe out of college. So I have a sophomore now. So we still had a long way to go at that point.
Yep.
And then really like just focused on the business and sales and trying to learn as much as I possibly could about sales and doing better and better on that in that journey.
So before we get to when you decide to sell it, because I'm very interested in the sort of when the plan changes from long term to short term, I want to start a little bit from the beginning. When you left to freelance, was the freelance, so this was what, 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Was the freelance world the same? Like, was it, do you, or was it less common to go out and do that in 2017? Was it a big move to do that? Or was it like everyone was going to freelance? I don't remember that moment in time. So I'm wondering if you can bring a little more color to that.
It wasn't common. So this was all before obviously COVID and before like quiet quitting or people having freelance side gigs, any of that stuff, right? It was also before working remotely was a popular thing. And the agency that I worked for was an hour away from my home. So anybody who has small kids who does the daycare thing knows, like, by the time you've been the last parent to pick up your kids for like 3 months straight, you just can't get over the parent guilt of that. I don't care if you're mom, dad, whoever you are. It's just it's an awful feeling. Or picking up your kids in the dark in the winter and like all that stuff just did not sit with me. Part of the reason was I grew up with a stay-at-home mom. So like the life I was creating was just so vastly different from what I had experienced. So no, it wasn't really common. The burnout that I experienced, and I think a lot of women experience, was really what pushed me over the edge. So I had like been squirreling away money. Like I just had prepared our family financially for maybe not making any money because I didn't know what that freelance world would look like.
Right.
And I really didn't have a whole, thinking back, I didn't have a whole lot of connections. And so it was really like, I would take whatever I could get. I joined business groups like BNI and just like tried to do some networking. And lo and behold, like some of my minimal connections worked out. And I had some retainer clients that I was doing marketing for and copywriting for and stuff like that, just to add to the family income and pay some of our bills. But to answer your question, I don't think it was a super popular thing at that point. And a lot of the freelancers were people who just couldn't find a full-time job, but they were still looking.
Yeah. So I think it's the other thing that I found in the story that's interesting is your former folks who worked at the prior agency where you go off to freelance decide that they want it, the owners of that agency, they want to have a smaller business offshoot. So that becomes like, I assume like you're doing your HubSpot agency, you're going, okay. Yep. So you're figuring out how to service small businesses. At that point, is it in your mind that you're going to build like an agency of substance, or are you like just, going with the flow and seeing what happens? Like, was it, what I mean is like, was it intentional prior to the buyout? You're starting, do you have vision for what you want to do? Or is it like, I'll try this and see what happens?
It was a bit of both. So it was I will try this and see what happens, because there was only sweat equity that needed to be put into it, not money.
Right.
So it wasn't like we were trying to start a product or something like that where it was like serious, right? Of course it was serious, but you know what I mean? Like I wasn't forking over $100K.
I do. I think it's relatively low risk to go into services businesses, which is great. But that often equates to the value that you are able to extract from the services business unless you do it right. Yeah. But we'll talk about that.
Totally. But to the flip side, I started it with this vision of wanting to sell it. So it was laughable in the beginning, but I would have conversations with my partners like, okay, well, when we sell it, like for instance, didn't know what to call the agency. There was floating around using my name in the title of the agency. And I was like, I don't think I want to do that. I want to sell this one day, right? I mean, the company was worth $50 at that point, if that. Sure.
It's worth nothing, but you know that eventually, and if you attach your name to it, it can be harder.
Yeah. So that was always in my brain. I was a student of what do you need to do right to be able to one day sell? Even though it was kind of like, I got nothing to lose. It was also, if this works out, I want to do this right and create as much value as I possibly can.
Okay, so this lead funnel is now coming in from all of the business that the larger agency can't service. You start to get that in, and then you start to figure out, how you can grow leads on your own, basically,
totally,
to be additive to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you make the decision to take what is somewhat of a risk and buy out your partners. Mm-hmm. So that becomes a bit of a financial risk and choice. So let's talk about what went into that decision and what something like that is like when you're having conversations. Did they want out? Like, how did that go?
Yeah. It was, other than selling professionally, it was the most challenging thing I have ever done in my career. And we've all done challenging things. This was challenging because I felt that I was in a situation where continuing as it was not an option. There had to be a shift and a change. And I felt that it just was not, if you took the personalities out, you took the relationships out, and you just looked at it on paper, it was not equitable anymore. It didn't make sense.
Of how much you were working in this business.
Correct.
And it had grown to a point where it became inequitable.
It did. I love those guys still to this day. They were important people in my life. They made a huge impact in my life in a positive way professionally. But I knew that the words, "I want to buy you out," coming out of my life, out of my mouth, would risk this lifelong friendship that we had all built. And so I hired a business coach to help me get the courage up to do that. I hired a therapist to help me with some of the just personal, like getting ready for a living loss of a relationship. And I started leaning on somebody who would become my mentor of more business dollars and cents to really help me see the black and white and like get rid of the relationship stuff that muddies the waters a little bit.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of, it happened fast in hindsight, but there was probably about 4 months of preparation work for me to be like, okay. And really the crossroads I was at was, we're either all going to sell it together now and ride off into the sunset, or I'm going to buy you out and I'm going to continue down this path on my own.
So you offered them both of those options?
I floated both of those options. Yes. The selling really, one, the business wasn't ready for it. Two, I think it would have, they still ran the other agency. So it just would have created like a bit of complexity in their life that I don't think they had a desire for, understandably. And so the buying out became really the obvious option.
So how did you get to the value that you felt was acceptable and present it to them in a way that they would feel was acceptable? I have a lot of people, by the way, this is going to be so helpful for so many women because I speak to a lot of women who are in tough partnership situations, need to navigate their way out. So I really appreciate you sharing this part.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. And it's funny for any listeners who are kind of reflecting on this situation for themselves. When we were drafting the original operating documents, my lawyer said, as any good lawyer should, like, you really should think about this document as if like something happens where you're at a crossroads. And I was like, that'll never happen.
Fine. But it's really,
it's totally, and now it's like, all partnerships, I think, come to a spot where you're dealing with it. So I should have taken that advice seriously. I totally brushed it off. So yeah, I mean, so financially for me, I had to buy them out, which was not like, I didn't have the money in the bank. I had to take out a loan to do that. So that for me as like a pretty risk averse person was like, oh, you're personal guaranteeing this stuff, like, it's scary. And you're betting on yourself. Remember, like starting the business, like I have nothing to lose. Now I had stuff to lose at this point. Yeah. Obviously from an emotional perspective, it was traumatic. It was, meetings where I'm drenched in sweat and just like having a very stressful moment while trying to appear very professional and calm and collected. And so with valuation, that is actually how I got introduced to Merge. We had a stipulation in the agreement if anybody wanted to buy one another out. That stipulation didn't end up pleasing the other party, even though we had drafted it that way. We couldn't come to an agreement. And so we needed a third party valuation provider, and they actually suggested, it was Barney at the time, now they've changed to Merge, but suggested. So I approached them, introduced myself, and they were willing at the time, I don't know if they do this anymore, they were willing to do a no fee, just quick valuation. And that's what we settled on as far as the purchase price.
You got a third party, independent third party. They do a valuation, and then you take out loans, you buy them out. Do you pay so you're paying, I assume you're paying the loan over time, but
Correct.
it's all financed through the loan, and then they are gone. And I want to know that moment after you've done that and you've sort of like reclaimed this agency, and here you are, and it's yours, and it's day one of being just yours. How do you feel?
I feel relieved. I feel still sad, right? And things are awkward, but I feel very relieved. I feel after a couple of months go by, I let go of that like panic feeling about, am I going to be able to pay this? And the reason why, Carrie, is because I was carrying so much extra baggage thinking about this that was like, how can you run a business well and carry that baggage at the same time? As soon as I let go of that baggage, the sales went, woo!
How did you let it go?
I think it was just done. Like, I had thought about it for so long. I had, like I do with everything, like prepared to the upteenth degree. I was ready. I was still nervous, but I felt like I had done everything I possibly could to help this go well as it could, right? And so I felt confident in myself. It wasn't like I just made a rash decision. It was very prepared. And so when it was done, I was kind of like exhausted thinking about it, right? Like I had exhausted thinking about every possibility. And like I said, I had this like new mentor who was part of Entrepreneurs Organization that was also like, you did the right thing, like be proud of yourself, now let's move on, right? And let me help you, coach you through growing this thing. And I was quickly convinced that, oh my gosh, like now that I can focus on the business and focus on sales and I own that and the profitability 100%, it just went way, like it wasn't bad before. We were growing every single month, but it just took off like crazy.
It sounds like you were really intentional about choosing to believe in yourself and understand that the work that you've done to get there would help you propel forward.
I was. Yeah. And the universe was reflecting that back on me, which I'm sure if it had been the opposite, right? It would have been a horrible feeling and I would have been doubting myself, but I was being reinforced by multiple directions that it was the right thing to do.
Okay. So now we get to the point of the story that I personally have been dying to know, which is I heard you say, and by the way, I think it's very interesting that we often talk about, I'm going to run this until, and then there's like a child's milestone. Like I had this, I sold when my oldest graduated high school. Like I was like, okay, I got her through, I'm going to sell, and then we'll figure the rest of them we'll figure out over time. But like, there's a lot linked as mothers, I think, to the milestones that we achieve as parents and for our respective kids. So what I heard was you plan to run it for a long time and then sell it. But what I know was you sold it relatively shortly thereafter, right? What was the time between when you purchased the business to when you sold it?
I bought them out in about April of 22.
Yep.
And I listed the business for sale the following November.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought I would hold on to it for 5, 6, 7 more years. And it did so well from a sales and profitability perspective that and the beginning of 2023, so the end of 2022, latter half was really good. The beginning of 2023 was even better. And I had been coached and sponged and listened to so many podcasts that was like, you sell when you're up. Well, how do you know when you're up? Like, you definitely know when you're down, but like, how do you know you're not going to continue to?
Is the up.
Is the up. Yeah. You only know if you go back down.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talks about how challenging that is. And so I was hemming and hawing and I was like, do I sell now? It was my oldest son's senior year in high school.
Yep.
Do I sell now? Do I hang on to it? And I was starting to, even though the agency was kicking butt, I was starting to burn out. Like, I think the sale or the buyout of the partners burnt me a little bit from just an energy perspective. I was re-energized after that went through and things were going well, but that only lasted so long. And so any service-based business owner knows, like, client complaints, you lose a retainer, you lose a key team member, like all that stuff is taxing. And I took some of it personally that I never should have taken personally in hindsight, but it's hard to help that.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, it's doing really well. Like, it looks amazing on paper. I kind of feel like I've done everything that I wanted to do here. And so I went and took a train ride. I'm in Philadelphia, took a train ride to Merge in New York City and just went to talk to them about potentially selling.
That's great. And so when you decided that you were ready to go through the process, was the process longer than you thought, shorter than you thought? How was that experience for you?
Yeah. So had the meeting with them in October, decided elevator ride down, like, I'm selling this thing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say anything that made me pause. Everything was confirmation of what I thought about value and all that stuff. And so we listed it in November. It did take 7 months. I was hoping it would take 4 months to sell.
7 months to close.
Yep. From start to finish. Yeah. It doesn't sound long every day.
Yeah.
Another thing I wish somebody had told me is when you decide to sell, you're ready. You're ready to sell. You're ready to sell, like, today.
That minute.
And every minute, hour, day of the sale process, you're just done. You're done with it. You're emotionally ready. I started journaling, like, all the things I wanted to do after sale. Like, I was immersing myself in what was next. And it was hard to deal with the punches that come along with a sale.
And so one thing I know about your deal, you did not have an elongated time, right? That you had to stay with the acquirer.
No, it was 90 days.
90 days. Okay. And so that's, I think, unusual, for a lot of agencies.
Mm-hmm.
How were you, did you have a number of offers, and was that the compelling reason for that offer? Or, like, wait, I would imagine that would be very compelling as looking at it as an agency owner.
Yeah, I had 5 offers. I was very upfront with everyone that my goal was not to hang on, that I had built the business and created processes and procedures alongside a wonderful woman that worked for me. That would not require me to be there. In fact, I'd be in the way. And so I positioned myself. It doesn't mean every offer came in with that matching position. So there were some PE offers where I would need to stay on for 2-3 years. They bundle package everything and sell it again. I didn't even really consider those. But I would say there were at least three out of the offers had a very short transition period. Some of them were not defined. In this particular offers, it was defined to 90 days.
And did they have protections in place that ensured, like, did you have key people that had to stay, or was it just, here, we're betting on this business? And
it was so I had a performance-based earnout as part of it. It was a small percentage of the sale, but it was there. So that was present. There was, of course, hope that the second in command woman stayed. There were more incentives for her that weren't part of the deal, but in the buyer's mind. Yeah, to help ensure that, which I thought was smart. Yeah, it was I would say we were both on the same page that I didn't need to be there. I just needed to help with the transition.
So how did it go? You go through this process, you're negotiating it, you're getting to where you need to be, and you're across the finish line. Do you experience regret? Are you 100% like, yay, I did this, it's great, everything's perfect? What was your experience like going through that sale?
Yeah, zero regret, zero. so glad it happened. It happened at a very emotional time. My son was graduating like 8 days later after the sale. So I remember the day of closing was the day that they bussed all the seniors to their elementary schools and did the like clap out walkthrough with the teachers and the little kids. And it was just like, oh my God, I'm bawling for 3,000 reasons right now. It's just, so that was kind of crazy, but crazy in a good way. Like, I think it was so celebratory and just, it was just so good. So zero regrets about it. I don't miss it. I don't strive to ever build a business again. I do little entrepreneurial things in my life still, but I'm not like ready to go on to the next thing or, anything like that as far as building something again. It was challenging. I think every single sale is challenging, whether a buyer drops out. Thank God that didn't happen in my case. Or, in my case, there was an SBA bank involved. Like they throw up challenges because they either have to or just that's the way it is. So I was getting educated through that process on how that all works, but it's always challenging. You got to partner yourself with somebody who's really strong, maybe somebodies who are really strong who've been through it, because most people haven't been through this before and don't know what to expect. Don't know what's normal, what's a rare challenge, any of that.
When they acquired the business, did they just roll it into their organization, or does 11 out of 11 still exist?
To my knowledge, I haven't checked the website, but maybe a couple months, 3 months ago, it still existed.
Right.
And I believe, so it was just a year ago, a couple weeks ago now. I believe the intention was to keep it its own for a year.
Okay. And what's next for you? So it's a year later. You have no regrets.
Mm-mm.
What do you see as your future career trajectory path?
Yeah.
Chilling. Like where are you in the world?
Right now, I'm doing fractional chief marketing officer consulting. So managed to work that into the deal and a non-compete language at the bank. Bank is most persnickety about those things. That the bank and the buyer were okay with. And so that's what I've been focused on lately. Like, I'm not looking to work 50 hours a week, any of that, but I would love to help some great companies do better from a marketing leadership perspective and help them grow their business. So I'm doing that consulting on the side. We also we had previous to selling, bought a piece of property in the Poconos, which is the mountainous area of Eastern Pennsylvania. So my husband's an architect. So we designed a home. We're building that house. It actually just finished. So we're excited about that. And just trying to spend more time as a family, like not stressing about taking a long weekend or doing little trips here and there and all the things that when you're running a business are like, how am I going to take any time off? And, that's a non-issue now.
That's amazing. Was it challenging for you to sort of sit in that stillness a little bit? Like, is it challenging for you after having run and gone at the pace that you did?
It is.
Pull back. And how do you hold yourself accountable to doing that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Half of me felt like retirement life has Angela written all over it. Like, I will have no problem. I don't know why other people have challenges. And then I realized, like, I'm just type A. Like, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know what I'm trying to prove. Haven't been able to figure that out. But I can't really sit still. Yeah. And so my one indulgence, Carrie, is that I do see I still have one boy in high school. Today's his last day. I do see him off to school in the morning, which is like ridiculous, like 6:15 or something. I get up, I say goodbye, but then I go back to sleep. And I used to pull my laptop up, and that was like my quiet time to get work done from like 6:30 to 9 every day. There's no reason to do that anymore. So
yeah, I mean, I am totally impressed by your ability to slow it.
It's hard. It's hard.
I'm impressed. I can't do it.
Really?
Yeah, I can't do it. I went right into go,
Yeah.
and, you know, started something immediately and
Right.
went really fast. And I think I could have used the time to say,
Yeah.
this out a little bit.
It's so hard.
I have trouble. So I definitely admire your ability to do that and enjoy the work. It allows you to enjoy the work that you do too.
Yeah.
When you choose to do work, it's
Yeah.
fun and
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. I think part of so I have two close girlfriends who both have battled breast cancer.
Yeah.
And one of them in particular was type A, like you and me, total go-getter. And it changed her life perspective. And watching her go through that and, you know, to some degree come out the other side. I think every cancer survivor struggles with, is it going to happen again? But come out the other side and be just like only work part-time and enjoy life with her husband and do fun things. Like that has taught me like, oh, that is what that can look like, right? She had a totally different journey than me, a much harder one. But that gave me, I have to see things to believe them.
Yes.
And it gave me something to see. Whereas I feel like with a lot of businesses that sell and why what you're doing is so important, the person either goes away and you never hear from them again, or they jump right into something else.
Right.
And you do hear, and you don't really understand the in between and what that can look and feel like.
That's right. And you also often don't understand from the outside. People do not understand jumping right into something. All of these, you see people who sold for massive amounts of money jumping right into something new. And the question is why? And I think it's truly that we don't master what you are tackling. And so that's why I think your message is so important and just so great for the world. Like you built a really interesting business. You were able to buy it out from your partners and then you sold it when you were done. It's exactly the type of story that I think needs to be told versus some of the bigger, shinier, you know, oh, I built this CPG company and raised $1 gazillion and sold for billions. You know, I think it's really important to see that it is possible exactly the way that you've done it. And I just really appreciate you being on the show, Angela.
I appreciate being here so much.
Mwah. Thank you.